Utah Jazz are one of the most fun/interesting teams in the entire NBA. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. Utah and the word fun don't really go together. And I'm not here to debate you on that, okay? And also, another side note, yes, the Utah Jazz doesn't make any sense. Give New Orleans their damn name back. Sorry, I had to get that out of there being a New Orleans Pelicans fan. Give us the Jazz name back. But that's not why we're here. Why we're here to talk is going to be why I think the Utah Jazz have one of the funnest rosters in the entire NBA. And now, once again, this is probably going to be a weird statement because when you think about their team, you don't think of them being a great team. You don't think of them being a good team. You don't think even about them being a playoff level team. And really not that many people are paying attention to what they are outside of the Utah Jazz fan base. But me personally, looking at their roster, I think they have a very interesting one and a very versatile one. And their future is going to be very fun to watch unfold. And if you want to hear why I think that, please watch the video all the way through. And without rambling on too much, let's get right into this video. So the first thing I want to get into is let's just talk about their crazy young core. So first I'm going to name all their players that I consider in their young core, and then we're going to break them down individually. Those names being guys like Keyonte George, Isaiah Collier, Taylor Hendricks, Cody Williams, Bryson DeVault, Walker Kessler, and Kyle Filikowski. Now let's break it down from the top. First, Keyonte George, their last year's first round pick. He is 20 years old, and in my opinion, he has potential to be a solid high-level starter. Now, although I don't see a star in his future, and maybe he'll make an all-star game one day, but I think that would be a stretch. I think he's just going to be more of a high-level scorer. His efficiency still have a long way to go, but I do think eventually he's going to become a fairly solid scorer and shooter, and should be a pretty solid starting level guy for this team for a long time to come. And then even Isaiah Collier, I'm pretty sure he was a late first-round pick this year. He's only 19 years old, and now how he fell as far as he did, I have no idea. I was very high on Collier. I thought he was a top 20 prospect in this class, and he fell way further than that, and I think they got an absolute stud. He's going to be coming off the bench for them for sure this year, but I think he's going to very quickly show his worth on both sides of the ball, and it's going to show why he shouldn't have had no business falling as far as he ended up falling, and I think they got an absolute steal with Isaiah Collier where they were able to get him. And the next player is going to be another first-round pick from last year, who is Taylor Hendricks, who is only 20 years old as well, and in my opinion, he has a potential to be a star in this league. He just had a pretty solid summer league this year. He looked fairly solid. He got a little bit of run last year, but not too much, and I think this year he's going to get a lot of playing time, and hopefully he can really show his worth, because I think Taylor Hendricks has a potential to be a two-way animal in the NBA. His athleticism is definitely there. His scoring is he can score at all three levels, and defensively he can pretty much guard 1 through 5 due to his strength and athleticism. And I just think overall Taylor Hendricks is one of my favorite prospects out of his class, and hopefully he can show why next year. And then this year, their first pick in the first round this year was Cody Williams. Now, Cody Williams, once again, another guy I think is a potential star. I think more realistically, he'll end up being like an Andrew Wiggins type player, which is still a very, very solid player. But I definitely do think he has that star level potential, as he can score at all three levels. He's a very solid defender. He plays at his own pace. Like, he knows what he can do and what he can't do. And I just think overall, he's going to be a very good small forward for them. And at worst, they got a high level starting small forward. And at best, maybe they got a perennial all-star on their hands as well. And I think either way, he is going to be a very good contributor for them, and he is still only 19 years old, so the sky is still the limit for him. And now moving on to the next guy, who is Bryson DeVault. Now, Bryson DeVault is a guy that I think is just going to be a rotational guy for his career, but in my opinion, he's going to be a very high level one. He can shoot the hell out of the ball. He can score whenever he needs to. He's a very solid defender. He's a high motor guy, and just overall an extremely solid guy out of Ohio State just 2 years ago, and I just think he's going to be a very good rotational guy for them. He probably is a starter level player that's going to be coming off their bench, and just overall, I think Bryson DeVault is going to be fairly solid for them going forward, and he is as well only 20 years old. And now for the oldest player in this young core is going to be Walker Kessler, who at 23 years old, I think has proven himself as a starting level center in this league, and maybe even a beast of a defender. Like, he has Rudy Gobert type potential, where although his offensive game definitely leaves a lot to be desired, his defense is absurdly good. Now, yes, last year he kind of had a down year compared to his rookie year, but he still had a very solid year. He's only 23 years old, so he's still going to get stronger, faster, more athletic, and he's only going to get better and better as he gets smarter as well. And I just think for sure, although his name has been in trade rumors, he's a huge part of this team going forward as it currently stands. And then the last player I want to get into is going to be another 7-foot center in Kyle Filikowski, who's kind of like the not opposite version of Walker Kessler, but just a different type of big than Walker Kessler. At only 20 years old for Duke, he was an absolute animal. He can shoot the hell out of the ball for being a center. He has a very solid fadeaway game. He has good touch around the rim. He's still 7 foot tall, so he can grab boards and block shots when he needs to. Now, he's not as good of a defender, obviously, as Kessler, or a rim protector as Kessler, but he's a much better offensive player. So maybe them two as a 1-2 punch as a starter and backup duo could fit together extremely well. And I just think overall they really have a solidified rotation of young guys that are going to help contribute now and for the long term for a very, very long time to come. And I think they have one of the most underrated young cores in the entire NBA. But something very unique to the Utah Jazz is most teams with these just extremely fun young cores to look at really don't have much in terms of veteran presence, or they just don't have much else outside of their young core. But that is just not the case for the Utah Jazz, as they have plenty of guys. Like, look at some of these names. They have Jordan Clarkson, a former 6th Man of the Year and a easily 20 point per game scorer any given night. Colin Sexton, a very high level, high motor guy who can also give you 20 any night, and he's just a very solid two-way guard in this league. Lauri Markkanen, who is just a flat-out star at this point in the league, is a 7-footer who can do anything you want him to do. John Collins has been a solid starting level player in the league for a few years now, and then even guys like Drew Eubanks are still solid rotational guys. So that is legitimately 5 veteran players who are extremely high level at what they do outside of Drew Eubanks, and are very solid as well, to combine with a very high ceiling, high level young core as well. And what that does is gives tons and tons of flexibility for the future of this team. As with the makeup of this team of having a very good young core and a very solid veteran cast with even a star like Lauri Markkanen on the roster, this gives them a future where they can go one of really 2 ways. The first way is kind of just hope some of those young guys in their young core develop into stars alongside Lauri Markkanen, and they can become a contender in the future that way, just from this self-development of their young core that they currently have. And don't trade Lauri, don't trade anybody, just stay pat, hope your self-development goes, bet on yourself, which isn't a terrible move if you have high hopes for some guys. And I personally think Cody Williams, Taylor Hendricks, and maybe even Isaiah Collier or Keontae George could become stars in the future. So if they do hit and a few of those guys become stars, they could be an unbelievably good team for a very long time if that happens. But on the flip side, if they don't develop and they just are solid rotational guys or just overall not as high level as you thought they were, then you're stuck in a spot where you have all these guys that no longer have the potential they once did because you waited too long. Their ceilings aren't that high, so teams aren't willing to trade for them as much or not give you as much for them. And you could find yourself in a weird situation where you have to blow it all up and restart again. Or you could go with plan B, which is sell every veteran that you have on the roster for draft capital, develop their young talent, keep adding through the draft, and hope you can pull off an OKC and really just start from the draft and build from there and become a finals contender in the future. And I think either one of these paths are very viable. Both of them have certain pros, both of them have certain cons. Now, if I were them, I think you're close enough to go at option A, because I think blowing it up might just be a little too much, but I also wouldn't judge them if they did. And I think the Utah Jazz have a decision to make whether they want to try to win now, develop their young talent, or blow it up, build for the future, and develop their young talent. It's going to be very fun to see. It's going to be very interesting to watch how it unfolds, and I am pretty much okay with them doing it either way if they do it correctly. But as for how their roster is currently constructed, I mean, they have currently unbelievably very, very high prospects for long-term growth with how good their young core is. And even Lauri's not old. Like, they have guys that can develop into stars one day. And then even short-term, I wouldn't be surprised if they're a playing team. Like, Lauri can keep playing at a star level. Walker Kessler can still be one of the best defensive centers in the league, while also having contributions from guys like Hendricks, Williams, Collier, Keontae George, and those second-year leaps, on top of guys like John Collins, Jordan Clarkson, all on the roster, who are still very high-level players that can contribute to winning immediately and give these veteran leaderships to these young guys. I think they could 100% be a play-in team, if not maybe even an 8th, 9th seed in the playoffs next year. I wouldn't be surprised one bit. But unfortunately, guys, that's my first video. So comment below. Do you agree with me? Do you think the Utah Jazz are interesting? How fun do you think they can be? How good do you think they're going to be next year? What do you think they should do? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like, point to the like button, subscribe button, and that's so road to me. And hope you have a blessed day, because I had a blessed day. So you need to have a blessed day. All glory to God. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo. Blah.